I went to the United States, and then my change started happening because I had a curious mind. I wanted to know the truth for myself. I befriended a lot of Jewish people because we were alike. We had very similar cultures. And when I was around my Jewish friends, even when they were not realizing I was among them, well, it was a big group, I would hear the word compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. What can we do to have peace with the Arabs? Da, 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 da. And when I was with my Arab friends alone, I would hear things about jihad. We will never have peace with Israel. We have to destroy Israel. Just hatred. And then when I was alone by myself, I said, now I know who wants peace and who doesn't want peace. It became obvious to me who really wants peace and who's afraid of even speaking out and saying peace. I lived on the southern border of Israel for 30 years. I was born and raised as a Muslim in Cairo, Egypt, and I grew up in the Gaza Strip, a time when President Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt was committed to unify the Arab world, destroy Israel, and stand up against Western interests around the world. In the 50s, my father headed the Egyptian military intelligence in Gaza, and he headed the Fidayeen operations against Israel. They made cross-border attacks into Israel and caused much damage, destruction, and death to civilians. In response to the terror, one night, Israeli commandos came into our heavily guarded home in Gaza City. And they only found my mother and us children. My father on that night happened to be Kaya. They left us unharmed. The Israeli soldiers did not hurt us or kill us, even though the Fidayeen did kill Israeli women and children. In Gaza elementary schools, I learned hatred as a normal thing, and I thought teaching hatred from teachers was also normal. Peace was never an option. It was a sign of defeat and weakness. As the film showed, they filled our hearts with fear. They didn't go right away to hatred. They filled our hearts with fear from Jews. And that made hatred comes easy. And then it made terrorism tolerated and even encouraged. Who wouldn't want to kill monsters? Expectations and pressure on Palestinians from surrounding Arab countries was extremely high. To fight Israel and never accept peace. I realized that when Arabs were controlling Gaza and West Bank. Those who wanted peace among the Palestinians were called by Arab countries traitors. My father was eventually killed by Israel in a targeted assassination in Gaza City in '56. I was 8 years old. In Nasser's famous speech to nationalize the Suez Canal, he hailed my father as a national hero. He vowed to take revenge, and he never mentioned the reason why Israel killed my father. He never mentioned the heavy toll of death and destruction that was caused by his Vidal. My siblings and I were asked by top government officials in Egypt after my father's death, which one of you will avenge your father's blood by killing Jews? They asked us. We looked at each other, myself and my siblings. We were speechless. We were mourning for our father's death. We didn't want to be told, go kill Jews. When the West Bank and Gaza were in Arab hands, its infrastructure, economy were neglected by all the Arab world. They used the two regions simply as launching grounds for war and terror against Israel. Is it any wonder why the Arabs of the West Bank and Gaza line up for work not on the borders of Egypt, not on the borders of Saudi Arabia or Jordan? They line up to work on Israel, on the border with Israel, the very country the Arabs tell them to terrorize. While the West was helping finance the economy of the two legions, Arab money was spared to finance terror. The West should never finance, support Hamas. It has now become convenient to blame today's worldwide Islamic terrorism on the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. But what about the terrorism against Israel that I had witnessed as a child and that happened before the '67 war and before the occupation? It was the placement of the United Nations forces after the '56 war that stopped the Fedayeen. After my father's death, my mother had to face life alone with 5 children in Cairo, in a culture that gave respect only to families headed by a man. Arab women are expected to sacrifice their families by giving up their husbands and sons for martyrdom. Conditions have even gotten worse for Aramees, who are now expecting to give respect, stature to themselves only if they even themselves engage in jihad, not merely to celebrate their sons and husbands' deaths, but they are encouraged to leave their own babies and go kill Jews. What kind of society have we become? What kind of society would give its mothers of babies who explode themselves to kill for the sake of killing Muslims? I lived for 30 years in the Middle East, in despotic dictatorships and police states under Nasser. I lived through the '56 war, the '67 war, and the '73 war, and all in between. But tyranny and wars don't end up with Israel. Muslims were silenced and forced to look the other way when Muslims tortured and terrorized other Muslims. I witnessed honor killing of girls, and I know personally a girl who was killed because she was raped at age 16. I witnessed oppression of women, Muslim women, female genital mutilation, and polygamy, and its devastating effects on family dynamics. And here we see some Western countries who want to bring Sharia law and polygamy to the West. It took me many years to change, and it wasn't easy. I realized I was indoctrinated with propaganda of lies, hate, and fear. But one experience in particular shaped my outlook on Israel. It showed Israel's compassion and competence. 10 years ago, my brother suffered a stroke in Gaza City and was not expected to survive. He was unconscious. The Egyptians around him asked, "Where do we take him now? Cairo Hospital or Hadassah Hospital?" Each and every one around him said, if you want him to live, take him to Hadassah. In time of crisis, I truly believe that Arabs trust Jews. They trust their expertise and compassion. I thank the Israeli government, doctors and nurses of Hadassah, for choosing the higher moral ground and for doing the right thing. I hear some today say, and some even Jewish people say, if only the state of Israel was not established in 1948, we would see the Jews in the Middle East live in harmony and peace with Muslims. But how can the people who believe in this explain why Christians, Armenians, Greeks, and other minorities have also been driven out and discriminated against in the Middle East after the World War II and after the departure of the colonial powers, the British and French? If Israel was the cause, how come all others have left? Even the Coptic Christians of Egypt, who are the original Egyptians before Islam even came to Egypt, they are being persecuted and are leaving Egypt in droves, in large numbers. In Arab culture, multiculturalism and diversity is not a value as it is in the West. As a matter of fact, it's a source of shame. We learn that non-Muslims are desecration. Their existence on Muslim land is a desecration, a kind of occupation, just by mere existence. Jews and Christians cannot safely practice their religion in Muslim Middle East countries. On April 20th, the Times of London reported that Muslim students in London are being taught to despise unbelievers, meaning non-Muslims, as filth. When I heard this, I remembered immediately the word nagas, which we in the Arab world called the Copts of Egypt. Blue bone, we call them. Meanwhile, multiculturalism in the West has become a disease. We've taken it too far and turned it into exactly what it was not supposed to accomplish. We are, in the West, tolerating intolerance. We are tolerating hatred. We are tolerating people who hate us and who live among us. Muslims in the West demand tolerance, though, and no profiling, and not to be judged by the actions of the terrorists. But Muslims do not apply the same principles themselves to the West. When one Danish cartoonist offended them, they blamed all of Denmark and even demanded an apology from the Danish government. They even blamed the West. There was a contest in retaliation in Iran. There was a contest to get Holocaust cartoons. And what does the Holocaust have to do with the Danish cartoonist? I don't know. The golden rule of treat others the way you want to be treated does not apply when it comes to radical Islam. They feel it's within their right to offend other religions in Muslim land, but they don't see the double standard. It is the terrorists and their many defenders who are giving Islam a bad name. It's not the reformists who are hurting Islam's image. It is the terrorists, and that's what I told some of the Muslims in the audience. They expect us, after 9/11, Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, to stick our heads in the sand and defend the indefensible. Will our denial bring sympathy and appreciation of Muslims? We must be in the front lines of the war on terror to be credible. If we want to be credible, Muslims will be more respected when we look after our own moral conduct and not when we pretend that the problem of Islamic terrorism does not exist. First, the Holocaust denial, and now jihad denial. Where is our credibility? Mosque-goers, Muslims, the good Muslims, the moderate Muslims, must require better from their preachers. They must reform their mosques. Many Muslims in America and many Muslims don't go to mosques because of the hate speech that they encounter when they go there. We must ask reformation from our teachers, from our politicians, from our media. Reformation will not come easy. Muslims themselves must fight for it. Enough is enough. Terrorism is the warfare of desperate people. Arabs should not be desperate. They need to be grateful for many blessings, land from the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf, and huge wealth from oil. They don't have a shortage of land. They have a shortage of freedom and tolerance. Terrorism is the lowest form of warfare. It's not a sign of strength, but a sign of a decay, a culture in turmoil and contradictions. A culture that's trying to hide its failures by finger pointing, blaming others, and destroying the competition. In this dynamic, Israel has become the most useful enemy, the scapegoat. That's why the current state of Islam is not as powerful as some might think. Anyone can have temporary power through terrorism. Reformation and peace must be pursued as a value from within the Muslim world. That's why Israel's fence must remain stronger and higher during this very dangerous transition. After 9/11, I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of jihad, the peaceful jihad. Terrorism is not just hurting the West and Israel, but most of all, it's also destroying the moral fabric and goodness that I know exists in Arab culture and in Islam. I speak out of empathy for Israel, a country that deserves our respect and not our hatred and terror. I now support Israel because it is the right thing to do. Being pro-Israel does not mean anti-Arab. We can support both if truly our common goal is peace. I get very discouraged when the media call terrorists freedom fighters. They think they are championing the underdog. But terrorists are not the underdog. They are brainwashed killers and murderers. And they represent the hope. They do not represent the hope of the future of the Middle East, but they represent the oppressive, dark past of the Middle East. They are the hidden hands of tyrannical and despotic regimes who want to turn back the clock and keep Muslim women in bondage and keep Muslim men under the authority of the tyranny. The true freedom fighters are the brave, moderate Arab voices who risk their life and speak from inside the Arab world. Advocating peace with Israel, advocating democracy and freedom, and many of them right now are in Arab jails. The freedom fighters, are the Iraqi voters who defied the terrorists and went and voted. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the freedom fighters are the people of Israel. I'm in awe as your recipients. You are the silent heroes who go about the business of living, riding buses, working, creating, and contributing to the world, and above all, maintaining your democracy and moral standards despite of the hatred, terror, war, and boycott for 58 years. The world must see that. Western media must advocate that. It must be God's protected hands over Israel. That you survived all of what I've seen from the other side of the fence. You are an inspiration and a blessing in this region. And to conclude, Israel should not be criticized for creating a physical fence to protect its citizens. And then they call it apartheid state. We Arabs have been surrounding you with an ugly psychological war of hatred, boycott, and an us against them attitude for many decades. It is time for the Arab psychological wall. We have a psychological wall surrounding you. It's time for this wall to come down in order for your physical wall to become unnecessary. The way the Jews have been treated by my culture is tragic and a disgrace. In today's world, no people should be called infidels, and no group of people should be called enemies of God by any religion. I long for the day when Muslim preachers promote peace and tolerance. They would serve their people and their God best by being a source of comfort, wisdom, and hope. They would bring back half of the Muslim population who don't go to mosques, who have practically are not practicing anything. We need to start having the religion back of tolerance and peace. By dialogue, by building bridges with Jews and Christians in the Middle East. Muslim scholars say Islam is a religion of peace. Then let us teach peace and forgiveness from the mosques and from the pulpits of mosques. I have forgiven Israel for the death of my father. And I hope and I know that Israel is capable of forgiving us, forgiving the Fida'iyyin, and forgiving the Arab world for the antisemitism and hatred and terror. Let us extend the famous Arab generosity to welcome you in our region as neighbors, as an asset in the region, and not as a threat. Thank you, Farid.
Two short questions. One, besides the story with your brother, what made you, quotation marks, see the light? And two, are you not afraid to speak out for your personal safety?
I'm afraid. I was more afraid 10 years ago after my brother, this happened to my brother. I was a journalist, and I wanted to write an article in favor of Israel after what happened to my brother. And I felt scared, and I didn't do it out of fear. So that part I am afraid. But 9/11 was that's it, the straw that broke the camel back. I love America. America gave me freedom that I could never have where I was born. It gave me dignity. It gave me a beautiful home. I have so much to thank America for. And now it's time for me to pay back. After 9/11, as an American citizen, I pledged allegiance to the United States flag. I owe it to America to speak out. As to how I changed gradually, there was another story. When I was only 20 years old, I was in Cairo visiting a Coptic Christian girl in Egypt. And she lived very close to a radical mosque. And it was Friday, so we heard the sermon on the loudspeakers. And as usual, I hear the same cursing in the mosques, cursing. And they call it prayer. And I looked at her eyes, and I heard, we were talking, and I heard the preacher say, "May God destroy the Jews and the infidels, the enemies of God. We are not to make treaties with them, and we are not to befriend them." And at that time, it was, I think, it was after the 73 war, and Sadat was considering peace, and it was addressed to people who were considering, the Arabs who were considering peace with Israel, and infidels. And I looked at my friend's eyes. We were early 20s. I looked at her eyes, and I saw fear. And suddenly, the prayers that I always heard as normal became embarrassing for me. I felt ashamed of the way, not from my religion, because books don't commit terrorism, people do. And I suddenly felt ashamed from the way Islam is being taught. And it made me aware for the first time that it hurts other religion. And that's how I started. And of course, my father's death and the glorification of jihad and shaheed. I love my father dearly, and just by him being taken away from me because of jihad. And people used to come to us and say, oh, your father is in heaven now. It's beautiful. He's enjoying heaven. I said, I don't want heaven. I want my father back. And so I rejected inside me something told me, I don't like jihad and I don't like jihad. So there was already before I went to the United States. I went to the United States, and then my change started happening because I had a curious mind. I wanted to know the truth for myself. I befriended a lot of Jewish people because we were alike. We had very similar cultures. And when I was around my Jewish friends, even when they were not realizing I was among them, well, it was a big group, I would hear the word compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. What can we do to have peace with the Arabs? Da, 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 da. And when I was with my Arab friends alone, I would hear things about jihad. We will never have peace with Israel. We have to destroy Israel. Just hatred. And then when I was alone by myself, I said, now I know who wants peace and who doesn't want peace. It became obvious to me who really wants peace and who's afraid of even speaking out and saying peace. And then, of course, the straw that broke the camel's back was 9/11. Right before 9/11, I was visiting Egypt for the first time in 20 years. And I visited Egypt, and I was stunned by radical Islam has taken over. There are Saudi mosques in Cairo, King Fahd Mosque, this mosque, and this wasn't there before. The bearded people are leaving. Most of the women are covered up from head to toe. And I said, this is not the Egypt I left. When I left Egypt, we were wearing mini skirts. What happened? And I saw unemployment in Egypt, garbage along the Nile River, unemployment, poverty is getting worse. And then I opened Egyptian newspapers, and all I see is Israel bashing and West bashing. And I'm like, don't they see what their problems are, where their priorities are here? And then I went back home to Los Angeles on September 10th at night, 2001, with my kids. I woke up in the morning and I saw the second airplane hitting between. And when I saw this, I said to myself, my husband was there. I started crying and said, sweetheart, jihad has come to America. The jihad I left behind is here. I can't be silent anymore. I have to speak out. And that's how it's. And what I'm doing now was never planned. It just happened. But my message is also for the Jewish people. They have suffered a lot. Who wants to just come out of a war where they were practically almost exterminated, just to find themselves in a situation where there's another Hitler coming? There is another Hitler, and it's in radical Islam. It's not the Muslims' culture, but I am speaking from knowledge from within, and this is the truth. It's very dangerous for the Jewish people now, and they have to unite. It's very sad. But you're not the only ones who are threatened by radical Islam. I'm getting emails from within Egypt, from the moderates and educated people in Egypt, who are telling me they are scared to death because they feel that the Muslim Brotherhood is about to take over. And if the Muslim Brotherhood takes over, the peace treaty with Israel is going to be over. we have to understand that Egypt is 75 million strong. And if you were lucky, once or twice, I don't know what can happen if you weaken. It's better to presume the worst than, I'm not telling Israel go bomb the Arab world. Please don't misunderstand my message. But don't be in denial. The West is in denial. And I love my people. And that's why I'm speaking out. It is very dangerous. The situation for the Jewish people is very, and when I arrive at Israel, I feel how tiny the country is. How the geography of this country is the size of New Jersey. Can you believe the people of New Jersey, the whole United States is against them? This is exact. The whole United States represents the Arab world, and New Jersey is Israel. And if we would not aware, we'd be crushed. We'd be crushed. And there's more. And it's not just the Arab world now, it's the Muslim world. Iran is joining the crowd because it pays off to have Israel as your enemy. It distracts your people from the tyranny you're doing. So Ahmadinejad, that's his name, he found out that the Arab dictators are successful in keeping their position by pointing out at Israel. And that's what he's doing, because he's in trouble. And I understand. Just by being Israel, I feel that right now, I am surrounded by hate. Terrible hate and terrible aggression. And if they were as powerful as the Germans, if they are at the level of technology of Germany, I guarantee you that the Holocaust would have happened a long time. We solved.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.